The beauty of reality shifting is that once you kind of get the hang of it, you realize that you can go pretty much wherever you want to go, as long as your mind can believe it. And in the interim of that waiting process, of that identity shift, of the life path shift, you have to allow for your perception of yourself to change. And I've talked about this quite a bit, actually, and I don't want to repeat it in this episode, although sometimes repeating things is very important because it helps with the process of edification. And these recordings are multi-layered, meaning you could go back and listen to them again and get something else out of it, kind of like reading a book, right? And your attention is focused on maybe certain elements, and then when that has integrated into your awareness and your consciousness, then when you go back, you'll find little nuggets and treasures. So when we are shifting, we are also shifting confidence. And what this means is when you are truly stepping into the unknown, you are going to have a mental barrier that is normal, that you're going to have to work through. The past comes calling. The old patterns, particularly if you are entrenched in them, if they are very well established habits over many, many years, and if it's a routine and a set routine that you've had for your entire life, then there's going to be some rigidity that you have to break through as you start reality shifting. And what happens is that when you start to enter into a new spiral, a new fractal arrangement, there's a little bit of that vacillation effect like we've talked about before, where you're in the new life and then you're in the old life. You're in the threshold, crossing into the new room, and then you're sucked back. It's normal. And so is the fear that you experience when you are actually stepping into the unknown, into new patterns, into new choices. And the impulse that you're going to have is still going to be there, right? And so when you start really shifting, pay attention to your knee-jerk reactions. Pay attention to your instincts. Pay attention to what you would normally do. And try to wait it out and to do something differently if you can. Don't worry if you can't, but understand that it is a process of change and evolution. And it's necessary because you can't just reality shift into a completely different body, a completely different version of you, a completely different life with completely different surroundings, and you show up with all of your memories and your conscious state of awareness as it is now, right? And when we think about traversing a spiral, we can descend and we can ascend. This is that karmic loop that we're in, and we get a chance to observe lessons from different perspectives. Now, when you start reality shifting, you actually start shifting into an adjacent spiral, presuming that you have one queued up. And this is the process of reality creation and manifestation, which goes hand in hand and in tandem with reality shifting. If you're just on the same spiral, day in and day out, most people spend their entire lives on one spiral, just FYI, particularly when they are not conscious. And when you start reality shifting, you start to move along the spirals that are adjacent to you. And at first, when you first start awakening to reality shifting, the spirals that are queued up around you are often recapitulations of the themes that are aggregated around you energetically. So let's say you have victim consciousness. You're going to have a bundle of spirals for which you can actually shift in and out of. And in one spiral, it's going to be a victim conscious with maybe your parents. The other one, it might be with bad bosses. The other one, it might be with friends. You might have like a queen bee type of friend or an alpha friend that's always trying to put you in beta. And so on and so forth. And all of these can also be in the same spiral too. When you are unconscious and you have not solved that root problem, what happens is that you bundle the spirals around you to be in that same theme. And sure, you can manifest a twin flame partner. Sure, you can manifest wealth for yourself. Absolutely. And what comes with that is going to be oppression or victimhood lessons for which you to overcome, for which you can overcome. You see how it works? And then when you become conscious, what happens is that you take all of those spirals and you evaporate them. You're like, gone. Because once you've mastered the lesson, chills on my legs. Once you've mastered the lesson, you now have a new set of realities that you can manifest, but you have to cue them up. This is a little review, but stated a little bit differently. And so now, let's say that you have this grand vision. You've done all of the work. You've cleared the path. You've leveled yourself up. And you now know a little bit about reality shifting and that you can go anywhere you want to go. Now the trick is that because the mind and the mindset and the personality is a little bit slower, sometimes where you want to go is so far off in the distance that you need to stepstone your manifestations. Another way to think about this is that you want to take almost like little leapfrogs to your main destiny. And along the way, you want to collect your gifts, your elixirs, your wisdom, your friends, the mentors, the people that are going to help you out. This is like the hero's journey, right? And so along the way, you're going to be continuing to level yourself up. And you allow for your personality to continue to shift in that direction. And you have this big mega goal, or you maybe don't have the full picture of it, but you have like visions that you've tapped into and archetypes that you have accessed and this level of understanding. Like when I first had one, just for an example, and let's pull it into the practical. I was at Mind Valley, A-Fest in Bali, and it was centered around manifestation, which I'm so grateful now in retrospect because I was new to manifestation as a principle, and I got a crash course from techniques to theory to practice among lots of different speakers, because that's what the entire conference was about. And one of the very first meditations that Vishen had us do was, and this was so cool to be able to do collectively in this big room with all of these spiritually enlightened and awakening people. Everybody's at a different place in their journey, right? So it's not like we were all quote unquote enlightened or spiritually awakened, but we were all on that path. And I believe that we were all really at different points. I was early in my journey, and there were other people that were also early in their journey, and there were some people that were just getting started, and there were others that were much more wise. You know, like they're like, oh, okay, you've had how many enlightenment experiences? Oh, okay, yeah. Not like a tit for tat, but it's like when you have your first one, you have this like massive awakening, right? You're like, yeah, I am awake. And you're so awake. And this experience of this download that comes to you is so extreme in most cases. And the contrast experience from being awake to not awake is quite large. And so you feel like you're living in a new world, a new way of being. And then you have to come down off the mountain because you have your shadow self and your behavior patterns that have been entrained in you. You have your knee-jerk reactions. You have your impulses. You have your codependent behaviors. You have the person who's not really assertive, the person who doesn't have boundaries, or the person who's still afraid of love, or whatever your theme is, and everybody has different themes. Person who's afraid of success. You know how many people are actually genuinely afraid of success and afraid of abundance and afraid of wealth? And it's remarkable. And so we have these self-sabotage patterns that after we have that first enlightenment experience, we have to integrate. And I remember after my first one, I was like, no, I don't need to. I'm gonna stay up here on the top of the mountain forever. And I actually, and fast forward a couple years later, I had a conversation with somebody who was further along than me, and she was like, you have to come down from the mountain. Everybody does. And I was like, no, I don't. And she was like, yes, you do. And I was like, why? She was like, it's part of the experience because you have to bring it into daily life. And even though I understood what she meant theoretically, I didn't really understand it until now, because that's what I'm doing now. Anyway, so now back in Bali at the manifesting conference, I'm sitting there and Vision has us go into meditation collectively as a group. The energy is very potent. And he asks us or invites us to tap into a vision of our higher self 10 years into the future. And I have this vision of myself that was on this boat in the Mediterranean. I think it was the Mediterranean, I'm not quite sure. And this gown, this silk green gown, sometimes it changes to like a fuchsia or a blue. And my hair was long, blonde, and with soft curls. And I could just so see it with such crystal view. And it was like I was waiting for somebody, and I was looking back at the dock, and the poise that I had, the embodiment of the energy that I had was so foreign to me. And this is me sitting in this chair being like, oh, I've got this enlightenment thing, I've got this consciousness thing. But when I envisioned myself in the future, I was like, who is that person? I don't even recognize them, And so to get there, I can't just reality shift and port myself into that person, because I don't even know how to stand as that person. That person has an identity. That person has a refinedness to them. That person has a mannerism to them that is so foreign to me that even if I was to port my consciousness to that body, I would feel like an imposter. And they would probably feel like I was taking over. I would probably be unfamiliar to them too. And so this is what stepstoning manifestations is about, is that even if you don't understand who that person is in the future, even if it's only a glimpse, but you feel the energy, you feel the resonance, and you're like, I want to get close to that manifestation. I want to merge with that manifestation. I want to see how it feels. I may not actually go all the way there, but I can't just get there from today. Even now, I can't get there from today, but I'm like 20% closer. I started growing my hair out. I stopped using a hair dryer. I actually threw away my hair dryer. I started using curly things and curly girl methods it's like a thing to, like morph my hair into that. And so it's one of those things where I am along for the ride, and I know that tomorrow and next month I'm not going to be on a boat in the Mediterranean. I'm cool with that, right? And instead, what I am focused on is how do I bring myself into alignment with that vision, with that essence of a person in my day-to-day life by a series of manifestations that is pulling me closer to that essence. Understanding, of course, that using your free will, you can always get off of that life path at any point. You can build an entirely new one, and you don't have to take direction from anybody, right? You can literally design it and your destiny yourself. But where you're at today versus that destiny is really important to understand, because what you want to do is navigate to that destiny by stepstoning your manifestations. Like if you think of creation as this river, this massive river, right? What you want to do is you want to build these little islands of manifestation that you can jump onto, do a couple of things there, do a couple of projects, start a business, find a partner, whatever your immediate goals are, right? Learn a skill, pick up an instrument, a foreign language, and then build another little island that you then step onto, where then you take what you've learned from that first island and then you apply it. So maybe you join a band after you've learned how to play. Maybe you visit a foreign country where they predominantly speak that language. Maybe you've taken up coding, so you start your project, whatever that project is. And then you want to build another island where you then take that even further. And so maybe you demo that project to a potential employer or to an investor. Or maybe you release your first album, whatever it is, right? But you see this process of stepstoning that gets you in alignment with your higher destiny that you have in your mind, your long range plan, and then allows you to pick up critical skills that will help you with your confidence to actually morph into that person. And by that way, by the time that you reach your quote unquote higher self or your highest destiny, whatever you've mapped out for yourself, it's not so far of a stretch. And then you can gently merge into the avatar that is waiting for you. And sometimes that consciousness wants to go to a different one, right? So we're not leaving an avatar that is empty. But what you don't want to do, because I've experienced this on my awakening journey, is you don't want to fight with the avatar and have this takeover experience to be like, I'm taking all of your love, I'm taking all of your abundance for myself. And, that's like a very selfish way to treat yourself. Instead, you want to treat your avatars in other places with the highest degree of respect. And if you do it properly, you can actually coordinate across space and time and across the different spirals. This is what I'm testing out. I'm not saying that it's going to work for you or work in every place, but I do have a plan where I have a lot of different interests and different avatars along the way who are just so happen to be aligned with the passion and the purpose and the vision of those. And I just connected with one of those older ones today that I thought was off the table. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. It's still active out there in the ether. So think big. That's the idea, right? Think big. And think about how you, with all of your consciousness, all of your leveled up essence, can do not just one mega destiny, but several in collaboration with the avatars that are existing across the space-time continuum. And don't feel shy about wanting to try out a life and swapping out and saying, hey, how is it over there? Oh, it's not a great fit. I might be kind of interested. And, like have a meeting. Go into meditation and have a meeting with your avatars. Because your consciousness has been split, right? This is the idea. We are fragments of a main source energy. And when we start talking about raising our consciousness to be able to do reality shifting, what we're talking about is having the awareness that we exist in other timelines and parallel universes. And once we have that awareness and we understand what consciousness is, we start to realize that we're awake there too. Isn't that cool? I mean, that's amazing, right? It doesn't mean that you have knowledge of each other, but at a certain point of elevation, we are aggregating our consciousness, which has been split, just like in the source energy. And so then when that awareness comes online, then you can become aware of your neighboring avatars who are also aware of you. And then that's when you can do some really, really amazing magical things. So listen, if you are interested in one-on-one reality shifting coaching, if you are interested in exploring your lifelines and doing the shadow work and the personal transformation for you to get to your highest lifelines and your highest destinies, then please feel free to reach out to me. You can email me at I can't talk. sacredjourneyproductions@gmail.com.